The air hung heavy, thick with anticipation. A lone woman stood trembling, a frail silhouette against the cold, imposing setting of the courtroom. Tears streamed down her face, each one a silent scream for justice. Her voice, hoarse from pleading, cracked under the pressure. Lawyers circled like vultures, their words sharp, their eyes colder than the marble pillars that adorned the room. The gavel pounded, each thud echoing the frantic beating of her heart. This wasn't just about bricks and mortar. It was about the memories woven into the fabric of her home, a sanctuary built on love. Her future, her past were precariously dangling by a thread, ready to snap at any moment. And from the fringes of the courtroom, a figure stirred. Unnoticed, almost invisible, he had been a silent observer of her plight. His clothes were worn, his face etched with the harsh realities of life on the streets, but his eyes, though clouded with pain, held a flicker of empathy, a spark of humanity that refused to be extinguished. He had seen desperation before, felt its icy grip. He knew the sting of being invisible, of being dismissed, of being the man people chose not to see. Yet something in the woman's despair cracked through his defenses. He wouldn't let her drown. Eleanor, for that was the widow's name, clutched the worn photograph tighter. It was her talisman, her shield against the cold indifference of the courtroom. The picture, faded with time, held the image of a life that now seemed a world away. There, frozen in a moment of pure joy, were Eleanor and her husband John. Their smiles radiated a happiness that transcended the limitations of the photograph. Each room held a memory, each piece of furniture a silent witness to their shared history. Eleanor could almost hear the echo of John's laughter in the living room, where he would regale her with stories, his voice filled with animation. She remembered their cozy dinners in the kitchen, the scent of his favourite roast filling the air as they shared their day's triumphs and tribulations. The garden, a riot of colours in the spring, had been their shared passion. John, with his calloused hands and gentle touch, had coaxed life from the earth, creating a haven of peace and beauty. Then tragedy struck, swift and merciless. John, her beloved John, was gone, taken too soon by a cruel twist of fate. Eleanor's world shattered, the pieces of her heart scattered like dust in the wind. Grief had become her unwelcome companion, a suffocating presence that threatened to consume her. In the aftermath of John's passing, Eleanor had clung to the memories of their life together, finding solace in the echoes of his laughter, the warmth of his embrace. The man in the corner carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. His name was Thomas, though it had been a lifetime since anyone had uttered it with warmth. He was a ghost drifting through the city streets, invisible to those who hurried past. His existence had been whittled down to the bare essentials, survival, each day a victory against hunger, cold, and indifference. Once he had been a man with dreams, a loving husband, a proud father. But fate, it seemed, had a twisted sense of humour. A workplace accident, the screech of metal, the searing pain, it had all happened so fast. He had lost his job, his home, his family, the life he had so meticulously built, snatched away in the blink of an eye. Despair had become his constant companion, driving him to the streets, stripping him of his dignity. Yet beneath the layers of hardship, a flicker of compassion still burned within him. He had known love, experienced the profound joy of fatherhood. He watched as lawyers circled, their words like weapons, their expressions cold and calculating. He saw the fear in Eleanor's eyes, the way her hand trembled as she clutched a worn photograph. It was a scene that mirrored his own past, a reflection of his own shattered dreams. He couldn't offer her wealth, couldn't erase her pain, but he could offer her something much more valuable. His unwavering support, his quiet strength. He would be her protector, her shield against the storm. He knew the law, had spent countless hours poring over discarded legal documents in the library, his only refuge from the cold. The courtroom emptied, echoing with the ghosts of justice served and denied. Eleanor, drained and defeated, gathered her meagre belongings, her movements slow, heavy with despair. She felt a presence beside her, a shadow falling across her path. She looked up, startled, into the kindest eyes she had ever seen. Thomas, his face etched with years of hardship, offered her a hesitant smile. "Ma'am," he began, his voice rough yet gentle, "I couldn't help but notice your troubles." "I know what it's like," Thomas continued, his voice barely a whisper, "to lose everything you hold dear." He pulled out the faded photograph, the edges frayed, the faces barely visible. Eleanor's eyes widened, recognizing the universal language of loss etched on his face. In that shared moment of vulnerability, a fragile bridge of understanding began to form between them. Thomas spoke of his wife, his voice thick with emotion, his eyes distant, lost in a memory only he could see. As Thomas spoke, Eleanor felt a glimmer of hope ignite within her. It was a fragile flame, easily extinguished, yet it offered a flicker of warmth in the cold, dark emptiness of her grief. This man, this stranger who had nothing but the clothes on his back and a heart full of empathy, understood her pain in a way that no one else had. He spoke of resilience, of finding the strength to carry on even when hope seemed lost. He spoke of the kindness of strangers, of small acts of grace that had sustained him through the darkest of times. Thomas, despite his circumstances, possessed a keen mind, honed by hardship and sharpened by observation. He had spent countless hours in libraries, seeking refuge from the elements, losing himself in the pages of discarded books. The law, he had learned, was a complex tapestry, woven with threads of justice, but also riddled with loopholes that could ensnare the unsuspecting. He listened intently as Eleanor, her voice trembling with emotion, recounted the details of her case. He absorbed every word, every nuance, every injustice that had been levied against her. Thomas knew that the key to Eleanor's case lay not just within the sterile confines of the courtroom, but also in the bustling heart of the city itself. He understood the rhythm of the streets, the whispers of the wind carrying stories untold. He knew that within the fabric of their community, threads of truth lay scattered, waiting to be gathered, woven into a tapestry of support for Eleanor. He ventured out into the labyrinthine alleyways, a silent observer, his eyes scanning the urban landscape. He sought out the shopkeepers, the vendors, the everyday people who had witnessed Eleanor's life with John, the love that had been the bedrock of their existence. Slowly, painstakingly, Thomas began to assemble his case. He gathered signed affidavits from those who had known Eleanor and John, their words imbued with the weight of personal experience. He obtained receipts, invoices, and bank statements, tangible proof that chipped away at the fabricated narrative designed to discredit Eleanor's claim. He spent hours in libraries, archives, and government offices, unearthing obscure regulations and forgotten precedents, legal ammunition to combat the cold, hard facts presented by the opposition. He meticulously documented his findings, his notes scribbled on scraps of paper, the backs of envelopes, and faded napkins, a testament to his unwavering commitment to Eleanor's cause. The courtroom, usually a place of sterile formality, seemed to crackle with anticipation. Eleanor sat on the worn wooden bench, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The weight of weeks of anxiety, of reliving her grief under the harsh scrutiny of the legal system, pressed down on her, threatening to extinguish the fragile flame of hope that Thomas had ignited. The opposing counsel, a man whose tailored suit and condescending smile spoke of privilege and power, had presented a compelling case, painting Eleanor as a woman unhinged by grief, her grip on reality as tenuous as her claim to her own home. He had used her tears, her vulnerability, as weapons against her, twisting her love for John into a sign of instability. Yet beside her, a steady presence, stood Thomas. He looked out of place amongst the polished mahogany and sombre suits, his clothes worn, his face bearing the marks of a life lived on the fringes. But his eyes, usually downcast, now shone with a quiet strength. his shoulders squared with a newfound confidence. He had become her rock, her unlikely champion in this arena of words and laws. The judge, his face a mask of professional detachment, gestured for Thomas to proceed. A hush fell over the courtroom as Thomas, his voice surprisingly clear and steady, began to speak. He didn't have the polished delivery of a seasoned lawyer, but his words, infused with the raw emotion of lived experience, resonated with a power that transcended legal arguments. He spoke of Eleanor, not as a legal case, but as a woman he had come to know, a woman of quiet strength and unwavering love. He wove a tapestry of her life with John, their shared dreams, their quiet acts of kindness, their deep connection to the community that had embraced them. He spoke of their home not as a property dispute, but as a sanctuary built on love, a testament to a lifetime of shared memories. He presented his evidence not as a dry recitation of facts and figures, but as pieces of a puzzle, each one carefully chosen to reveal the truth that lay hidden beneath the surface. He presented the affidavits, the voices of ordinary people bearing witness to the extraordinary love that Eleanor and John had shared. He presented the documents, the receipts, the financial records, each one a testament to their meticulousness, their shared responsibility in building their life together. A hush fell over the courtroom as Thomas finished speaking. The silence, once heavy with judgment and doubt, now thrummed with a different energy. It was palpable, this shift, like a collective intake of breath, a shared recognition of the truth that had been spoken. Eleanor, her heart pounding in her chest, dared to look up. The judge, his professional detachment momentarily forgotten, surveyed the scene before him. His gaze lingered on Eleanor, her face etched with anxiety, and then on Thomas, his worn clothes and weathered features, a stark contrast to the polished surroundings. And in that moment something shifted in the judge's eyes, a flicker of understanding, a recognition of the human drama unfolding before him. The judge's gavel, when it finally fell, seemed to reverberate not with the finality of a verdict, but with the echo of a promise. The case was dismissed. The accusations against Eleanor deemed baseless, her right to her home, her memories, her life with John unequivocally affirmed. A wave of relief washed over Eleanor, so profound it threatened to sweep her away. As Eleanor embraced Thomas, tears of gratitude streaming down her face, a ripple of emotion spread through the courtroom. The shared recognition of the power of compassion to triumph over adversity. The story of Eleanor and Thomas became a beacon of hope. It spread through the streets like wildfire, carried on the whispers of the wind, shared in hushed tones in coffee shops and on park benches. It's a call to action. We all have the power to be a light in the darkness, to offer a hand to those struggling to stay afloat. Share this story. Let it inspire you to look beyond appearances, to recognize the humanity that binds us, to embrace the transformative power of compassion. For within each of us lies the potential to be someone's unlikely hero, to ignite a spark of hope that can illuminate even the darkest of corners.